Salt water burned the cuts across my palms as I dragged the torn inflatable higher onto the sand, and Claire Thomas, the woman who signed my paychecks, stood 10 yards away, staring at the dark ocean like it had just erased every plan she had made. The raft scraped over coral grit behind me, half deflated, one black tube hissing whenever a wave reached it. The sun was dropping behind a wall of orange cloud. The tide line was climbing fast. Every piece of foam crawling up the beach said the same thing. We had maybe 30 minutes before the sea took the wreckage back. Claire held the cracked waterproof radio in both hands. Her white shirt was torn at one cuff, her trousers were streaked with sand and diesel, and the wind had pulled half her hair loose from the knot at her neck. In the boardroom, she was calm enough to make louder people stop talking. Out here, with blood drying near her wrist and storm clouds folding over the reef, she looked like someone fighting to keep fear from showing. "Nathan," she called. Her voice was steady. Too steady. I crossed the sand. She turned the radio toward me. The screen was black. Again, I flipped it over and watched salt water drip from the split battery seal. "This one is finished," I said. Claire looked toward the reef, where our survey boat sat half submerged in the shallows. The bow still broke the surface between waves. The mast was gone. The cabin windows were punched out. The hull rolled with every swell like a trapped animal trying to tear itself free. "The satellite phone?" she asked. "Went under when the tender flipped." "The emergency beacon?" I did not answer fast enough. Her eyes came back to me. "Nathan, it was clipped inside the dry locker under the forward bench. On the boat." "Yes." The word landed between us like an anchor. The beacon was our cleanest way home. Without it, rescue depended on the harbor realizing we were overdue, checking the route, and guessing the right side of the channel before the storm scattered debris in 3 directions. Claire turned toward the wreck. "Can we get it now?" "No." Her jaw tightened. I pointed at the white water, breaking over the reef. "And the current is wrong. Tide is rising. That channel is pulling out and sideways at the same time. If I put either of us in that water now, we may not come back." She stared at the surf as if she could order it to behave. "When?" she asked. "Midnight." She turned. "At low tide, the reef will cut the swell. The cabin may be exposed enough to reach from the lee side. We get one window. Maybe 20 minutes. And if the beacon is gone?" I looked at the torn raft, the fuel can near the driftwood, the silver emergency blanket tangled in the bow line, and the flare pack clipped to my belt. "Then we build a signal big enough to be seen from the search grid. With what? With what is left." She gave one short nod. No panic, no useless questions. Just calculation. That was why she was here in the first place. Claire had not been on my boat for a sunset cruise. Her company was about to sign the final takeover agreement for Southline Marina, and she had insisted on inspecting the offshore mooring route herself before Monday's board vote. Parker Davis, the operations manager pushing the deal, had called her overcautious in front of half the marina that morning. Then he handed me the revised route. Too close to the reef. Too late in the day. Too perfect on paper, I argued. Parker smiled. Claire watched both of us, then boarded because if the route was unsafe, she wanted to see it before anyone buried the truth in a report. Now, the boat was broken, the radio was dead, and the tide was erasing the evidence. I looked at her. "I am going to say this once." She lifted her chin. "Say it. You are my boss on land. Out here, I am the captain on record. I make the safety calls. You can question every decision, but you do it fast. Once I give an order, you follow it until we are off this beach." Her eyes held mine for one hard second. Then she nodded. "Understood." It should have felt like authority. It felt like the world had handed me one life besides my own and said, "Do not drop this." I turned toward the tree line. First problem, shelter before the wind shifts. Claire set the dead radio on a rock as if she hated giving up on it. "What do you want me to do?" "Collect dry palm fronds. If it bends, leave it. If it snaps, bring it. Watch your footing. No reaching under logs. Crabs are rude, and I do not want to negotiate with one." She blinked. Then the corner of her mouth moved. "Crabs are rude?" "Deeply." She went toward the trees. I went back to the raft. One tube was torn, the other still held partial air. The floor panel was cracked but usable. The bow line was intact. In the emergency pouch, I found 2 bottles of water, 1 foil blanket, a cracked compass, and a whistle tied to the radio strap. Not enough for comfort, enough for a plan. I cut the raft floor free, while the last light bled from the sky. The knife slipped twice in my wet palm. Each time, I stopped, wiped the handle on my shirt, and started again. Rushing ruins fingers. Rushing at sea ruins everything. Claire returned with dry fronds and driftwood. I snapped one frond. Clean crack. Good, I said. You sound surprised. I sound concise. A quiet breath left her. It might have been a laugh if the day had been kinder. Together, we built a lean-to against a low rock wall above the tide line. I tied the first bowline. Claire copied the second after watching me twice. When she tied one wrong, I pointed to the loop instead of taking the rope from her hands. Turn that back through. She did. The knot held. For the first time since the wreck, her mouth almost smiled. The sky darkened. Purple settled over the clouds. Beyond the reef, thunder moved behind the horizon. I set the 2 water bottles on a flat stone between us. Rules, I said. 1 cap an hour? She asked. 1 cap an hour. No eating anything from the island. No walking into brush after dark. No standing near the waterline, unless both of us are visible to each other. That is not much water. No. She unscrewed the cap, filled it, and handed it to me first. You have to swim at midnight, she said. Take it. I took the cap. The water tasted warm and plastic. Claire measured her own cap next. Her hand shook once, barely, and the water trembled against the rim. She steadied it against her knee before drinking. The wind shifted. East? I said. What does that mean? The storm is curling? Toward us? Toward the channel? She looked at the wreck. So midnight gets worse. Midnight gets narrower. I walked to the highest part of the beach and watched the reef. If low tide exposed the rocks like I expected, I could cross from the sandbar to the starboard rail, reach the dry locker, cut the beacon loose, and get back before the next surge. If I misread it, the channel would pull me under the hull. Claire came up beside me. Tell me the truth. I am. No. The full version. I watched 3 waves hit the reef, then the lull behind them. The midnight window is possible, I said. Not safe. Possible. She nodded slowly. What can I do? I placed the cracked compass in her hand. Learn the beach. North is there. Reef is west. Tree line east. High ground behind us. If I am delayed, you do not come after me. You move from shelter to signal fire without guessing. Nathan, you asked for the full version. Her mouth shut. I softened my tone. You keep the flare. You keep the whistle. If I do not return by the 3rd long wave set after midnight, you move to high ground and wait for daylight. She stared down at the compass. I hate this plan. Good. It means you understand it. We walked the beach until she could count the route without looking down. 24 steps to the driftwood, she said. 12 to the rock if I angle left. Flare under the silver blanket. Whistle on my belt, not my wrist, because wrists get injured. Good. She looked at me in the gray light. You do this like you have rehearsed losing everything. I picked up the shell marker and turned it in my fingers. I rehearse not losing people. The answer came out too plain. Claire did not press it. Rain arrived after sunset, soft at first, just enough to darken the sand and make the shelter smell like rubber, salt, and crushed leaves. We sat under the raft floor with the foil blanket pinned along one side to block the wind. The space was cramped, but I kept us angled apart. I gave Claire the dry half and kept the torn edge near the opening so I could watch the waterline. She noticed. You are taking the wet side. I am taking the door. That is not an answer. It is the captain version. She looked ready to argue, then pulled a laminated card from her pocket. Emergency contact card, she said. Corporate policy. I used to think it was performative. She handed it to me. Claire Thomas, Operations Director, Southline Acquisition Team. Below that, in smaller print, emergency contact. Nora Bailey. Assistant? I asked. Chief of Staff? Friend, if I stop pretending people cannot be both? Rain ticked against the raft. Monday's board meeting, she said. If I do not show, Parker presents the route data without me. If he controls the meeting, he gets authority over the marina transition. The same Parker who handed me the route. Yes. Yes. The same Parker whose crew sealed the backup radio locker? Her eyes sharpened. What did you see? I pulled my water-damaged logbook from the inside pocket of my shirt. Pencil survives what ink does not. I opened to the pre-departure checklist. Primary radio tested green at 1,500. Backup radio was marked on board by Parker's crew. I did not physically see it because he said the locker had been sealed for insurance audit. Claire took the logbook carefully. Sealed why? His words, not mine. She looked at the dead radio near the shelter. There was no backup. No. The beacon is in the same section? Forward bench. Different compartment. If the locker tags are still there, the logbook and beacon together prove the boat was sent out without required equipment. Claire's face changed. Not fear. Focus. That is why he changed the route, she said. If the acquisition failed, he could blame my caution. If something went wrong, he could blame your navigation. Maybe? You do not sound convinced. I do not accuse people until I can hold the proof in my hand. She looked toward the wreck. Then at midnight we get the proof. No, I said. At midnight, I get the beacon. Nathan, no. The word cut harder than I meant it to. I took a slower tone. You are injured. You are not trained for reef current at night. If both of us go and the hull shifts, no one fires the flare. No one keeps the logbook dry. No one makes the report. She looked at the logbook. And if you do not come back, then you make the report. It was the wrong answer for comfort. It was the right answer for survival. Claire closed the logbook and held it against her chest, then lowered it as if she disliked the softness of the gesture. I am used to polished lies, she said. I am bad at polished, I noticed. A gust hit the shelter. I pressed one palm to the raft floor until it settled. Claire reached for the rope and tightened the knot she had tied earlier. It held. You taught me that, she said. You learned it. A small distinction, a bigger trust. The hours before midnight moved in pieces. Rain, wind, the reef slowly appearing. Claire counting steps outside the shelter while I checked the channel, and her tearing a strip from the cleaner edge of her cuff to wrap my palm. You need grip, she said. That was a good cuff. I have other shirts, not on this island. Then I will file a wardrobe complaint when we are rescued. The storm flashed white once, lighting the wreck. The bow rose out of the water for 3 seconds before darkness swallowed it again. Almost time. At 11:40, I laid the plan out one final time. Flare stays here. Whistle on your belt. Logbook under the foil blanket. If you hear 3 whistle blasts from me, light the signal fire and fire 1 flare high. If you hear nothing, count 3 long wave sets after midnight. Then high ground, she said. Yes. And if I see your light, you wait until I reach the sandbar. And if you wave me in, I will not. She looked up. You are very committed to making people obey you, only when the ocean is voting against them. The moon broke through the clouds at 11:55. Low tide pulled the reef into view, jagged black stone shining under thin light. The wreck leaned starboard, cabin half exposed. Water still moved through the channel, but the violence had lessened. Not gone. Lessened. I clipped the rope around my waist and handed Claire the other end. You said I was not going in. You are not. You are my shore anchor. What do I do? Keep slack until I signal. If I go down, do not try to haul me like a fish. Wrap the rope around the driftwood, brace low, and give me resistance so I can pull across the current. She swallowed once. Okay. I stepped toward the water. Nathan! I turned. Claire stood with the rope in both hands, rain and salt streaking her face. She looked older than she had in the boardroom and stronger than she had on the boat. At midnight, she said, take me back to the wreck. No. Listen. The word stopped me. She lifted the logbook. If the beacon is loose, you grab it. But if the sealed tags are still there and you cannot reach them safely, you come back. You do not trade yourself for paperwork. I know that. No, you know the sea. You do not know Parker. I do. Her grip tightened on the rope. He will use any missing piece to build a story. So, here is my request. If you see proof and cannot retrieve it, mark the location. Make it findable. Do not vanish, trying to be complete. The surf ran up around my boots and pulled sand from beneath my heels. That was the midnight request I never saw coming. Not comfort, not fear, a boundary. She was asking me to survive, even if the evidence had to wait. I gave one nod. Agreed. She did not smile. Say the whole thing. I looked at the wreck, then back at her. If the proof is not safely retrievable, I mark it and return. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. Thank you. I stepped into the water. The first touch of the channel was cold enough to bite. I moved slowly, rope loose at my waist, knife in my left hand, flashlight strapped to my wrist with Claire's torn cuff. The beam shook over black rock and white water. Twice, the current shoved my knees sideways. Twice, I waited instead of fighting it. Rule 1. Never spend strength just to prove you have it. The sandbar rose under my boots halfway across. I crouched, counted the wave set, then moved again. Behind me, Claire was a pale shape on the beach, low and braced, both hands on the rope. Good. The wreck groaned when I reached it. Metal under stress has a voice. This one was tired and angry. I climbed onto the starboard rail and kept 3 points of contact. The forward bench had shifted. The dry locker was underwater to the hinge line, but the latch faced up. I hooked the knife tip under the strap and pulled. It stuck. I changed angle, braced my shoulder against the rail, and tried again. The strap snapped. The locker lid opened 2 inches. A wave hit the hull. The boat shifted. The rope at my waist went tight. On the beach, Claire had felt it. She held. I reached into the locker and found the beacon by touch. Hard plastic. Clip. Coiled tether. I cut it free and shoved it inside my shirt. Then, my flashlight hit the other locker. Parker's inspection tag was still there. Not sealing a backup radio. Sealing an empty compartment. A red plastic seal with his initials and the wrong date. I could not remove it without climbing deeper into the cabin. The hull rocked again, harder. Water surged through the opening and slapped my thigh. For one stupid second, my hand moved toward the tag. Then Claire's whistle cracked across the water. One blast. Warning. She had seen the hull shift. I stopped. The midnight request held me in place better than the rope. If the proof is not safely retrievable, I mark it and return. I took the grease pencil from my pocket and drew a wide circle around the inspection tag. Then I carved an X into the broken bench panel beside it with the knife tip. Findable. Documented. Not worth dying for. I blew 3 whistle blasts and moved. The return was worse. The current had started to turn. Water slapped the reef from a new angle. The rope stayed loose until my right boot slipped off a submerged rock, and the channel took my knee sideways. I hit the water shoulder first. Salt filled my mouth. The beacon slammed against my ribs under my shirt. The rope snapped tight. Claire did not pull wildly. She did exactly what I told her. Wrapped. Braced. Resistance, not panic. I used that tension to get one knee under me, then one boot. The next wave shoved me forward instead of sideways. I grabbed the sandbar edge and crawled through foam until the water thinned beneath my hands. Claire reached the edge of the surf, then stopped where I had ordered her to stop. "Beacon?" she called. I pulled it from inside my shirt and held it up. For one breath, the island went silent except for the sea. Then Claire turned and ran to the signal fire. By the time I reached the shelter, she had the dry fronds ready. I activated the beacon with shaking fingers, checked the strobe, and set it on the highest rock. The small light began to pulse into the dark. Once, twice, again. A mechanical heartbeat. Claire stood beside it, one hand pressed against her bandaged wrist. "You came back," she said. "You told me to. I made a request. I followed it." "And the locker?" Marked. "Parker's seal is on the wrong compartment. No backup radio. I cut nothing from it." Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, the softness was gone. "Then, we do not just survive this," she said. "We end it. The island, the storm, the sea, the wreck, all of it seemed to pause. Then the beacon flashed again, and the world started moving. Rescue came at dawn, first as a sound beyond the cloud shelf, then as a white search helicopter sliding over the water with the morning sun behind it. Claire fired one flare when I told her. I used the foil blanket as a directional flash. The pilot banked hard, and the orange rescue basket dropped toward the beach. A Coast Guard swimmer reached us first. "2 survivors?" he called. "2," I answered. "1 wrist injury, possible dehydration, no head trauma observed." Claire looked at me. "Do you ever stop making reports?" "Not when reports are useful." When the basket came down, Claire was ordered in first. She looked at me. I nodded toward the basket. "Your turn." "I can wait." "You can follow instructions." She gave me the look that usually scared marina staff into silence. Then she climbed in. When they lifted her, one hand stayed wrapped around the logbook, sealed inside the flare pouch. I watched until she reached the helicopter. Then I sat on the sand because my legs had finally understood the night was over. The harbor was full of noise when we got back. Sirens, dock lines hitting cleats, cameras behind the barrier, Southline staff standing in pressed shirts with faces arranged into concern. Parker Davis waited near the fuel office, talking to a Coast Guard officer like he owned the air between them. He saw me step off the rescue boat and smiled. Not relief. Preparation. Claire came down the gangway behind me with a clean bandage on her wrist and a rescue blanket around her shoulders. Nora Bailey rushed forward from the barrier, face pale, hair pinned badly like she had dressed while running. Claire let Nora hug her with one arm. Then she looked past her. Parker was walking toward us. "Nathan," he said loudly, making sure the staff could hear. "Thank goodness. We were all worried. I told the Coast Guard the route conditions changed faster than expected." I said nothing. His eyes flicked toward the pouch in my hand. "The important thing is that everyone is safe," he continued. "We can sort out the navigation decisions later." There it was. The frame. The captain misread the route. The boss survived despite him. Parker remained clean. Claire stepped forward. "We will sort them out now," she said. Parker's smile thinned. "Claire, medical should clear you first. Already done. The board can wait." "No," she said. "It cannot." In the harbor office, the air smelled like wet rope, old coffee, and printer toner. 6 of us gathered around the chart table: Claire, me, Parker, Nora with the board chair on speaker, a Coast Guard officer, and Miles Carter, the mechanic who had filed 3 ignored maintenance complaints. Claire looked at me. I opened the logbook. "This will take 6 minutes," I said. The room went quiet. I put the pre-departure checklist on the table and held the corners with a compass and a fuel cap. At 1,500, primary radio tested green. At 1,510, Parker Davis provided a revised offshore route and stated the backup radio locker had been sealed for insurance audit. At 1,535, vessel departed under protest noted by me here. I tapped the pencil mark. Parker crossed his arms. "Under protest does not mean unsafe." "No," I said. "It means disputed." Miles leaned over the page. "That is Nathan's handwriting." I placed the dead radio beside the logbook. At approximately 1,710, primary radio failed after impact. Backup unit was not present. Emergency beacon was retrieved at 0017 from forward dry locker. The sealed inspection tag Parker placed was found on an empty compartment, not on a backup radio locker. Parker stepped forward. "That is impossible." I set the grease pencil on the table. I marked the tag location. Coast Guard can confirm when they inspect the wreck at low tide. The officer wrote that down. Parker looked at Claire. "You are taking his word over mine?" Claire stood. "I am taking the logbook," she said. "The beacon timestamp, Miles's maintenance complaints, the Coast Guard inspection, and my own memory of you, calling my caution expensive 2 hours before you sent us into a reef route with no backup radio." Parker's mouth opened. Claire cut him off. "Do not interrupt me." He stopped. Outside the window, dock crews had stopped pretending not to watch. Claire picked up the logbook and held it so the speakerphone could hear pages turning. "Nathan Walker kept us alive because he treated procedure like it mattered when everyone else treated it like paperwork. He made the safety calls. He retrieved the beacon. He marked evidence he could not safely remove because I asked him not to trade his life for a cleaner report." Her eyes moved to me. "Steady. I am placing him in charge of the incident navigation report and suspending Parker Davis from route authority pending investigation." Parker went red. "You do not have unilateral power to—" "The board chair is on the line," Claire said. The phone crackled. Then the board chair spoke. "Suspension approved pending review." Parker looked at the phone like it had betrayed him. Miles Carter let out a low whistle. For 6 months, I had been the quiet captain, useful, replaceable, called when wealthy people wanted boats moved without questions. I told myself that was peace. It had just been a smaller cage. Claire slid the logbook back toward me. "Captain Walker," she said, "will you prepare the final report?" I put one hand on the damp cover. "Yes," I said. "I will." The next week became a line of facts no one could bend. The tide table showed the reef exposure. The GPS track showed the route deviation. Miles produced maintenance emails, proving Parker knew the backup radio was missing. The Coast Guard photographed my grease pencil circle around the wrong inspection tag exactly where I said it would be. The beacon timestamp matched my log. Parker was suspended, then removed from route authority, pending legal review. The board meeting happened 1 week after the wreck, not in a courtroom. Just a conference room above the marina office with bad coffee, repaired docks outside the window, and Parker's attorney seated where Parker should have been. I stood at the front with the route overlay on a screen behind me. Claire sat halfway down the table, wrist-wrapped, blazer sleeves rolled once at the cuffs. She treated me like I belonged there. I walked them through the timeline. Departure protest, route deviation. Missing backup radio, reef impact, midnight retrieval, beacon activation, evidence preservation. Every time Parker's attorney tried to blur a point, I returned to the chart. Timestamp, tide table, maintenance email, photograph of the sealed empty compartment. Facts do not need volume. By the end, chairs stopped creaking. Pens stopped tapping. The loudest sound was the projector fan. The insurance investigator closed his folder. Based on the documentation, we will not classify this as Captain Error, Miles muttered. About time. Then Claire stood. There is one more item. She walked to the front and stopped beside me. Not behind the board chair. Beside me. Southline has spent too long treating the people who understand the water as replaceable, she said. That ends now. She placed a folder on the table. Nathan Walker will be offered the position of Director of Maritime Safety and Training, reporting directly to the Safety Committee. His authority to delay departures for safety review will be written into operating policy. The board chair nodded. Approved. Claire held out a pen, not a command, an offer, in front of everyone. The signature line today was not the employment contract. It was the interim authority form, effective immediately, giving me power to stop unsafe departures before the next tide cycle. Practical. Specific. Witnessed. I signed. The pen scratched across the paper, louder than it should have been. Miles started clapping once. Nora joined. Then the safety committee. Then the room. I looked at Claire. She did not smile like someone had won a romance scene. She smiled like someone had fixed a broken system with the correct tool. After the meeting, the harbor was bright under a clean afternoon sky. Boats rocked gently in their slips. Miles was already shouting at someone about torque settings, which meant the marina was healing in its natural language. Claire walked beside me down the pier. At slip 12, the repaired training skiff bumped softly against its fenders. Claire stopped beside the cleat and took a small brass key from her blazer pocket. The safety office, she said. It used to be storage for broken chairs and expired flares. Miles cleared it out this morning. He complained for 40 minutes. That sounds like Miles. I want you to set it up your way. Charts. Logs. Training schedule. Whatever keeps people from making decisions by ego. I took the key. It was heavier than it looked. A concrete thing. A door. A roll. A place to stand before the emergency, not just during it. Claire looked toward the open channel. I also told the board that after the reporting structure is finalized, I am stepping back from direct oversight of your position. You did not have to do that. Yes, she said. I did. The wind moved over the dock, carrying salt, diesel, and the clean sound of lines tapping metal. I do not want anything between us to feel like a condition of employment, she said. Not the job, not the contract, not what happened on that island. You get to choose your work cleanly. I closed my hand around the key. And after that, her smile was small, but it reached her eyes. After that, if you ever invite me for coffee as Nathan instead of Captain Walker, I will be available on a day when neither of us has nearly drowned. A gull screamed from the roof of the bait shop. Claire looked up at it. Rude. Very. For the first time in years, I did not feel like a man hired only after someone else ignored the tide. I had a key. I had a chart table waiting. I had a woman who stood beside me in the room where it mattered, then stepped back far enough to let my choice remain mine. The wind shifted west, clean and steady. This time, I did not have to warn anyone. The course ahead was finally safe to take. The end. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Real trust is built when someone respects your boundaries under pressure. Green flag. The right person does not ask you to prove your worth by risking yourself. They help make sure you come back. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.